Hello, Houston. I'm Roger D with Texas T, where I bring on guests who are entrepreneurs, hustlers, prominent figures in the community, as well as prodigies, and get their stories as well as success and what you guys can take away from that. Today's guest is really concerned about Harris County, and she's looking to make, in the near future, Harris County safe for its residents to work, live, and play, instead of being a safe haven for criminals. So today I got Mary Nan Huffman. She is on the ballot for DA for Harris County, and I have Bill, as you guys have known from previous podcasts, Texas Card House. He's going to help us because he's really big on Harris County, really big on local Houstonians, and we're going to talk about making everyone safe today, huh?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, Roger.
Yeah,
Great to be here again.
Of course, man. You're one of my favorites. So it was an easy yes. But just for the listeners right now, as we first go into this, I know a lot of people have an idea of what a DA is, what they do. But if you guys could give a kind of a quick synopsis a little bit deeper than normal, what do you guys do?
Sure. The DA's job is to seek justice. That's it. That's the whole thing. So when a police officer arrests someone, they have probable cause to make an arrest. They bring the case to the DA's office. The DA's office then is kind of a checks and balances for the police officers. They make sure that the evidence was collected properly. They look at everything, and then the DA, along with the judge, decide what the best punishment for the crime is. And sometimes that may be prison, sometimes that may be probation, sometimes that may be a diversion program.
Got you. So they're taking all the potential cases in and figuring out, essentially figuring out what the result needs to be and uphold the justice system, of course.
Absolutely.
And so what does Mary Nan stand for when it comes to being a DA for Harris County?
It's all about just being fair and doing the right thing every single time. I know that not every crime is the same and not every criminal is the same, and justice is individualized. We need to look at the facts of the crime. We need to look at the person to see, is this something that they've done before in their past? Do they have a record, a criminal history? Or is this a stupid mistake? You take into all the factors when deciding what the appropriate punishment is.
Got you. So it's more of, so for you're looking at from a as unbiased standpoint, taking yourself out of it and looking at the history of whoever was arrested as well, and looking at the big picture of, is this someone who needs to be punished through the justice system, or is this someone who first time, maybe wrong place, wrong time? So you're looking at it from a very empathetic standpoint, it seems.
Absolutely. I think that, we need to realize that we're all human beings. We all make mistakes, but we need to balance public safety versus someone's individual liberty, because those are two very important things when you're talking about putting people in jail. But ultimately, public safety is the responsibility of the DA. And public safety is the one thing the government should be able to provide for its people. So I'm looking just to keep the people of Harris County safe, but look at evidence, or look at cases through evidence-based investigations.
Got you.
Mary Nan, are there minimums in the justice system where you say, if this crime is committed, whether it was the case of the wrong place, wrong time, or whether it was just a well thought out act, is there a minimum sentence to say, if this person does this, they at least have to do this? And do you have the power to override that as a DA?
So there are, and I think that, the legislature, when they came up with these kind of minimums, they know that there are a million different scenarios. So if you look at something like the charge of murder, that could be anything from actually probation all the way up to life in prison. If it's capital murder, that could be all the way to the death penalty. And I think a good way to think about that is, if you were a plumber, Bill, and I have a leak, what are you going to bring to my house? What are you going to bring?
Wrenches.
wrenches,
wrenches,
okay?
yeah.
Right. But you're going to bring a whole toolbox of
Yeah,
stuff, right?
right.
Because you don't know what you're going to need until you get there.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with the justice system. You don't know what you need until you look at all the factors. You look at the person, you look at the history, you look at the crime itself. And the legislature realizes that sometimes we have these giant ranges of punishment from probation to life in prison because we don't know what we're going to need to do the right thing. Now, there are some cases where continuous sexual abuse of a child, if you are found guilty of that offense, the minimum is 25 years. That's the minimum, all the way up to life, and you're not eligible for parole. So you do 25 years day for day.
Well, that makes sense. And I know before we started recording, you were talking about early in your career, that's what was your focus, right?
Absolutely. I was a prosecutor for almost 10 years. When I left the DA's office, I was the chief of child exploitation, internet crimes against children, child human trafficking. That was my passion, and I spent the most time working with those types of crimes.
Right. And I'd have to say, obviously, any of those type of crimes are a very emotional thing, even looking from it on the outside. How did you keep your head in the game to make sure that justice was served when you're seeing these situations that are probably heart-wrenching?
They are, but I got to save kids every day.
Yeah.
So it was pretty amazing. And especially when you bring that technology component into it instead of just a regular sexual assault of a child case. I tried a lot of cases where, maybe an infant was being raped and it was being videotaped. And that video through technology comes to me, and that child is rescued before, you think about a traditional sexual assault case, and the child has to be abused, get to an age old enough to realize that it's wrong, then make an outcry to someone, an adult who has ears, who's going to make a report to the police.
Mm-hmm.
Then the police have to investigate it. I mean, there's so many chances for that to break down through the justice system. With technology, I mean, we're getting evidence. And unfortunately, some of these kids are so little. But on the other hand, some of these kids may never even know about the abuse.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I really like your perspective, because even hearing it, I was like wincing myself, because it's tough. It's tough to even know that.
Where does Harris County fall when it comes to crimes against children? I mean, where are we at right now with the current administration?
Well, we know that Harris County as a whole is up there for one of the number one cities for human trafficking, especially with children. But I think that, criminals know where to commit crimes, and we're not giving criminals enough credit. I was a prosecutor for a long time in Montgomery County, and one of the last cases I worked on there was a mom who was going to put her 2-year-old daughter on a Greyhound bus from Houston to Conroe and sell her for $1,200 for 2 hours of sex with this man that she had met in an incest chat room. Well, the good news is that man was actually an undercover officer that was working on our team. And so we set up a sting. We had surveillance at the downtown Greyhound in Houston and surveillance up in Conroe. But before she put that little girl on the bus, she sent a text message to the undercover officer and said, "Hey, you think we should just stay in Harris County? Because that DA up there, he doesn't like people like us."
Oh my God.
And that was kind of an eye-opening moment, because it wasn't the crime that bothered her. It was the jurisdiction. She knew that if she committed this crime in Harris County and got caught, she wouldn't be punished. And I'm thinking to myself when this is happening, no, but this is where my kids live. This is where I am, go somewhere else to commit your crimes. And I think that's the message that we need to send. Criminals talk. And when I went back to the office and I was talking to some of the other assistant DAs, they said, well, it's not just child exploitation cases. I had a drug dealer the other day that said, hey, I'll come up there and sell you black tar heroin, but I'm not crossing that county line. Because they know that in Montgomery County, they would be punished. So they would rather stay here in Harris County where they're safe.
And this is because of who's sitting at the DA's chair. The person who holds the DA's seat is kind of the last straw. That's the person who says, hey, criminals, you're going to get a really bad punishment, or, hey, you know what? You seem like a nice guy. We're going to give you another shot after another shot after another shot. Is that right?
Absolutely. The position of the DA is to put policies in place to further the goals of the office. And if the goal is public safety, one of those goals is letting bad guys know that if you commit crimes in Harris County, you're going to be punished. but she hasn't done that. And so criminals feel welcome here.
And it's kind of crazy that I myself wasn't aware until talking to you how bad that was, but the people who are aware of it are the criminals because it affects them directly the most. Of course, it affects the residents as well, but that's wild how someone who's living in Harris County probably won't even make that connection to the DA's office. They're just like, oh, Houston just has a lot of crime. But if the criminals are thinking that, and they're thinking, man, if the DA's not going to prosecute me, then I'm going to do it over here, then that's an obvious change that we have to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to have dinner with Mary Nan a few nights ago, and some of the stories that she told me, I mean, literally kept me up that night thinking to myself, how can this be? How can someone who's sitting in the DA's office with a clear conscience make some of the decisions that they're making and letting these criminals come in and out of the justice system like there is a revolving door? The story you told me about the two girls that had come down for missionary.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us that story.
So there was these two girls. One was living in Utah, one was living in Arizona, and they were Mormons doing a mission, 18 years old, probably from little towns where they never had to lock the doors or, didn't have any crime. And they were sent to Houston to come spread the word of God and, do their mission work here. And I was thinking, as a mom, if I found out that my 18-year-old daughter was picked to go to Houston, Texas, I would feel so relieved. Like, oh my gosh, thank goodness she's not in some, third world country.
Right.
She's in Houston, Texas. I mean, she's going to be safe, right? And I'm sure that's what these girls thought too. They moved into an apartment in Harris County, and they weren't here for even 2 weeks before their apartment was broken into. The man that did it, he had kind of been watching them, had been stalking them. The girls didn't know who he was. They were kind of oblivious to him. He broke in with intent to sexually assault them, or one of them at least. But the girls were able to defend themselves. One of the girls has no nerves in both of her hands because she was trying to protect her face and neck, and he stabbed through her hands. Another girl was stabbed multiple times in the stomach and caused lacerations in her intestines, and had to go back and, fix all of that. And these girls will never be the same. Luckily, he was caught leaving the scene, covered in blood, was taken into custody, and he gave a full confession about what his intent was, what happened when he got inside. And I don't know if he thought only one girl was in there and then was surprised when there were two, and so the two were able to overtake him. But that was kind of their welcome to Houston, right? And I went and looked up the cases, and that guy, he'd been charged with each one for burglary of a habitation. And I'm thinking to myself, burglary of a habitation?
That sounds off.
Right, that sounds a little off, right? Because this was attempted murder. This was attempted sexual assault. This was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And, and I hear a charge like burg hab, and I think a normal person hears that charge, and they think, well, that's a nonviolent crime. Or, I've had my house broken into, 2 different houses broken into 3 different times. I wasn't there any of those times. And so I think that when we hear burglary, we know most burglaries tend to happen between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. when people are at work, houses are empty, and it feels violent when it happens to you when your house is burglarized, but it's not technically considered a violent crime. What happened to those girls, that was violent. And right now we're getting ready for this election. And, the DA has a lot of discretion. The DA is one of those positions that with great power comes great responsibility. And so it makes you wonder, well, why would we charge this case as burg hab when something very, very violent happened? It makes me think that, Kim Og filed charges like that to make it look like violent crimes in Harris County were going down, because it doesn't look like a violent crime from the outside. And, but we need to look at justice. We need to look at, it doesn't matter how many violent crimes are happening in Harris County. I think we need to be transparent. We need to let people know that there's a problem. We don't need to hide crimes for political gain to make it look like over the last 4 years, Harris County has become safer because our numbers are going down. Our numbers are going down in Harris County because Kim Ogg isn't accepting as many charges as previous administrations. So it's not that crime is down, she's just not accepting cases. And so, Bill and I were talking about that the other night. He said, well, as a normal person trying to follow along, how would I know that? How would I know that numbers are being manipulated? And you really don't, because we rely on our leaders to be honest, to be ethical, to do the right thing for the people. But what we've seen over the last 4 years is Kim Ogg doesn't do anything for the people. She does things for political gain. She does things that get her the most publicity. She doesn't actually care about justice or the victims or the outcomes of the cases. She does whatever she thinks is popular and whatever she thinks the public wants. But really, the public just wants a DA to protect them. I mean, that's what we all want. We all want to live in a safe place. We just want a DA to keep us safe.
And what do you think was the initial break? When did she get into office?
In 2016. So she took office January 1st, 2017.
Got you. And when do you think were the clear breakdowns? Like, what was the start of this kind of downfall?
I think it was a start from the beginning. Kim Ogg she wanted to be the progressive DA with these diversion programs. And I think diversion programs are a good tool to use. Absolutely. So I think it started out with some of these kind of lower level offenses, and then it progressed into some of these more violent crimes and not holding criminals accountable. Over the last, I think it was 2 years, Kim Ogg has given 344 convicted felons. Okay, these are people that have already been convicted of felonies, have already been to prison. Once they get out of prison, the rule is you're not supposed to have a firearm, right? She's given 344 convicted felons deferred or probation when they've been caught again with a firearm.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, okay, the rule is you don't get a firearm if you're a convicted felon. So then we give you probation to follow more rules that we know that you can't follow in the first place. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. I think that criminal justice should be common sense. And at some point, we need to start protecting law abiders and start punishing law breakers. And why are we giving repeat violent offenders, why are we catering to them?
Yeah. And I actually have a friend who I won't mention, but he had a felony charge. And this was like 12, 13 years ago, and he's still trying to find a way to be able to purchase a weapon. And he's like, he's irritated by it, but I think it's okay for that situation to be blanket situation and then ask for, I guess the governor's okay is how you get it if it doesn't fall off your record, the felony.
Well, I think that, you're allowed to have a firearm in your home if you've been convicted of a felony, because you can defend your home after 5 years.
Yeah.
So you could have one in your home. You're just not supposed to have one
On your person.
Right, on your person. But I think, again, that goes into looking at the whole entire situation, that justice is individualized. Was that felony for somebody that committed credit card abuse, and that's what the felony's for? Or is it somebody that was convicted of aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon and now has a deadly weapon? There's a wide range of felonies when we look at.
And this goes back to what you're talking about before, that when you're going to take cases, you're going to look at it from the whole picture instead of what should we do to make people happy.
Absolutely. And I think that, I go around and I talk to schools and I talk to kids, and just to kind of give them a perspective of what's happening out there. And, you hear maybe somebody stole $300,000 and you think, gosh, that sounds like a lot of money. They should go to prison, right? But then what if you heard that the guy who stole that money, that, his daughter's dying of cancer, and he stole that money to be able to pay for her medical treatment to keep her alive? There's a difference between someone who steals it to buy fancy cars and to pretend like they're a rapper, and then somebody who, has fraud for a cause, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's different.
Yeah.
And you have to look at, that's why you can't say this crime equals this punishment.
I got you. So as well as being hard with repeat offenders and felons, I know there's obviously a lot about police brutality and everything like that. What's your take on that, and how are you going to approach those cases?
So I work for the police officers union right now. I work with HPD and I am 100% pro law enforcement, but I'm 100% pro good law enforcement. Nobody wants bad cops. Nobody wants cops that commit crimes. And if you take advantage of a Harris County resident, I don't care if you are wearing a badge or sitting on commissioner's court, you need to be held accountable just like everybody else. And so we do have a problem, and unfortunately, we do see instances of police brutality. We have a case pending right now in Harris County. It was a no-knock warrant, and the officer who wrote the warrant falsified the affidavit, and 2 people are dead. And, that is unacceptable, that a police officer would lie in an affidavit and a result like that would happen. And he needs to be punished 100%. But I think what we're seeing in Harris County is, Kim Ogg, right now, because the election's coming up, she's trying to capitalize on this anti-cop mentality. And we've seen some officers be charged recently where the shootings were justified. And I know that not every shooting looks good on tape. Most of them don't. Mm-hmm. But under the law and under policy, if someone is using deadly force, then you can come back with deadly force. And just because it doesn't look good doesn't mean it wasn't lawful, right?
Right.
But we've seen Kim Ogg indict some officers where these shootings were justified. Now, I don't think that these cases will I don't think the officers will end up getting convictions in these cases or going to prison necessarily, because Kim Ogg doesn't care about the outcome of the case. She wants the publicity of this officer being arrested, the perp walk, the pat on the back for holding police accountable. And, I've had people say, well, if you're the DA, what would you do? I said, look, if somebody needs to be indicted, I will indict them. But if somebody is not guilty, then I'm not going to indict a case where I know that there is no evidence. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is not justice. And, I promise as the next DA of Harris County, I will never misuse my authority for political gain, publicity stunts, just to make the news. And that's what we've seen her do.
Yeah,
I can vouch for that. I was one of those victims of her using the news to embarrass.
We talked about this
last year. Yeah, May 1st, I get arrested for first-degree money laundering and organized crime, which those are kind of cool things to get arrested for if you're going to get arrested for something, right?
Sure.
But I'm on the news, the 12 o'clock, the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I mean, I'm on all the stations.
Yeah,
they're splashing my picture, my name, my partner's names, and also the other club that was arrested. We all are celebrities. Well. Fast forward, the charges get dropped because the FBI started an investigation into the DA's office. Well, there was very little news about that. They didn't name anybody who was involved, especially this guy Amir, who was the one who was kind of leading the charge on the extorting the 2 clubs. His picture was never put up there. I mean, they made it very little. And then when the news kind of spun it, they said, well, the investigation's been handed over to the FBI. Made it sound like they're investigating us. No. The investigation that's handed over to the FBI is into the DA's office. But that doesn't get the 12 o'clock, the 5 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, the 7 o'clock news. None of that does.
Right.
So, you had used the term a master manipulator of the media. Kim Ogg has done a great job of that. But unfortunately, that's not what we need. We need somebody who's doing the right thing. And just because you're on the news doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. Just because you spun it a certain way definitely doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. I'm hoping that by this conversation and many more conversations that we plan to have highlight that show that there's a big difference between being on the news and being shown that you're doing this, this, and this, and doing the right thing, because the right thing doesn't always make the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock news.
And I also, first of all, speaking to the media, I remember hearing about all that, and I didn't really know Bill at the time. So my initial thought is like, oh, okay, that probably happened. Mm-hmm. I had no reason to think differently. Yeah. And I remember actually I was speaking to Rich about it, and he, had nothing but the best things to say about it. And then obviously I met you, and that was compounded. So it's crazy how, because we try to get our information as quick as possible. We're all super busy. So if you have someone that's kind of like pumping that media outlet to you, you're just going to take it at mostly face value. I mean, not now. Everyone's got to question everything, it seems, but
you really do.
But
if you had ethical leaders and you had people that were there for the right reasons and doing the right thing, you wouldn't have to question it as much. And I think that because people don't know necessarily about Kim Og and that she is unethical, that people hear it and take it at face value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mary Nan probably won't be on the news a whole lot
Good.
because she's not spinning stories. She deserves a Netflix special because that's where you find the truth nowadays.
There's the
right?
plug. There's the real plug.
Have you seen Social Dilemma?
I haven't seen that
Oh
yet.
my God. Well, watch it. You'll understand what I mean by that reference.
I think that's where they're talking about the kind of the hits of dopamine with likes and everything like that.
Well, it's putting the right content in front of the right people to keep them engaged so
Got
you can
you.
get another ad in front of you.
Got
And that's
you.
all it's about.
Echo chamber.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the difference between mainstream media now. You look at mainstream media and depending on who's writing it, that's who's spinning it. Houston Chronicle did a great job on my story because they actually just told the facts, they told the truth, and they didn't doll it up at all.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Houston Chronicle for doing the right thing.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
So hey, rolling back to what you're saying about, media and having potentially wrong indictments or wrong charges. So as DA, will you go back and look at a lot of cases that were used just for spectacle, cops or not cops, just residents of Harris County, and kind of readdress those situations? I know that's in the back of my head, that's a possibility, but for the listeners, how possible is that?
I think absolutely. Cases that, when I take office January 1st, cases that are still pending will be my cases at the DA's office. And I think that we need to take a hard look at what is pending and sort through what is legitimate and what is not. And I think that we can get rid of some cases that way, because I don't think that every case filed at the DA's office necessarily has merit.
Yeah. And so aside from things that are pending, I also meant cases that are already resolved. Is there a way to re-look at them again as DA?
So if a case has already been disposed of, then the DA no longer has jurisdiction
Okay, got you.
with those cases if they've already been dismissed or they've already moved through the system. Now, if new evidence comes in, like testing comes in and we find out that the drugs that somebody pled guilty to, it wasn't really cocaine, it was a bag of sugar, right? Then we have a duty to go back and notify them because they weren't guilty of possessing cocaine because it wasn't cocaine, right?
Gotcha. So you could take hold of things that were pending that were still paraded in front of the media, but you would have to have new evidence. But that's also good, I think, is if you're a new DA and new evidence shows up. I feel like from what I've heard of not so good DA offices or even attorney generals, once new evidence shows up, they don't really want to look at it because then it makes them look bad, right?
Absolutely.
So
What is about the rumors that I've heard that there are currently assistant DAs in the office that are being asked to do things that are unscrupulous? May get them disbarred. I mean, are there any merit to those rumors?
So we've seen a few of those resignation letters recently from employees of Kim Og that have made the papers that said, I was a prosecutor for 15 years. I would have continued to do this job for another 15, but I can no longer do the oath that I swore to, which was to do justice, that Kim Og is making the prosecutors try cases based on public outcry and not on facts and evidence. And that should trouble everyone.
Yeah, 100%. I know we keep going back to Kim Og. I want to try to focus it back more on you, Mary, and I'm sure someone who's listening that might be a big Kim fan or on the fence or what have you. What are some of your competitors saying that, hey, look, this is why Mary shouldn't get in, and what would you say to those accusations or lines?
There really isn't anything. The one argument is that I am pro law enforcement. I do work for the police union, that there may be conflicts. However, I think it puts me in a good position because, the DA's office and police officers, they're not on the same team, but they are allies and they do have to work together to make this system work. And right now, law enforcement feels unsupported by CHMOG. They feel scared to do their jobs. They feel like if I need to use my weapon or use deadly force, even if it's justified, I may get indicted. And it's preventing officers from going out there and being able to do their jobs effectively because they are scared.
Yeah.
So I think, building that relationship back with law enforcement to make the system work well, and I've met a lot of police officers, and don't get me wrong, there's good and bad people in every profession, just like there's good priests and bad priests and good teachers and bad teachers. There's good police officers and bad police officers. But working together at the DA's office is a learning experience. And most of the officers I've met, they are good ones. And nobody does this job because they want to do a bad job. And so if a prosecutor sees something in one of their cases that, hey, this is a reason why evidence is going to be excluded, or, this is a reason why this case is going to be difficult for us to prove in court, call the officer into your office and go over that with them. Use it as a chance for a learning experience. So next time we don't make those same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah.
We have to work together to train officers to be better. And really, when I talk to officers, I learn just as much from them as they do from me.
Yeah.
I think that bringing in some of this, they call it vertical prosecution, where you work with officers from the beginning of cases. We did that a lot in Montgomery County. So I would work with officers from the very beginning of the case. Once we got probable cause, writing the search warrants to make sure that they were good under the law. Then I would go out on the search warrants with the officers when they would go into houses and collect evidence, because I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking about trial and what evidence I need to prove a case. They're thinking about probable cause and being able to make an arrest. But the better cases we get are cases where we can collect evidence on the front. And then when we go to court, showing somebody or the defense attorney, this is what we have, this and this and this shows why he's guilty. And what we saw when we applied that vertical prosecution is cases would be resolved faster. They didn't take as long. More cases, didn't go to trial because we had what we needed to say, this is why you're guilty, this is why this punishment is appropriate, and we could dispose of cases faster. So it worked. And I think we need some of that cooperation.
Got you. So even the DA and police are separate. You guys are you're trying to intertwine them more so it keeps the process with less holes in it, essentially.
Keeps the process with less holes in it, but then it also is a checks and balances type situation. We still need to make sure that evidence is collected the right way and that somebody's rights were not violated.
Yeah.
And when that does happen, if rights are violated or evidence is collected wrong, maybe that case needs to be dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have a conversation with that officer. Hey, next time, this is the way chain of custody needs to go, or this is how to preserve evidence on the crime scene. So that way, next time, we don't have those same mistakes.
Got you. So it comes for a better outcome no matter what that is closer to what justice really needs to be, right?
Absolutely.
And kind of to go back, because I'm glad you talked about that, and I'm glad you touched on that, because I do know no matter what, I think the biggest thing will be the fact that for those who don't like the fact that you're 100% behind the police, I feel like if someone sees someone who's that, they just ultimately believe that you're anti the BLM movement, anti re-looking at the police department. But you had said in what you were just describing that we need to continue to help support and train better and retrain the police. So what are your thoughts on kind of, I know in your position you won't be able to do that, but what are your thoughts on kind of Houston Police and Harris County Police and re-looking at their departments as a whole?
I think that we are lucky, especially with agencies like HPD, and we're in this big county, that we do actually have some of the best trained police officers in the United States, which is why we don't see as much, police brutality and things like that as we do in other counties and other states. So we are trained, but we could always do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you think about officers, the officers that first graduated from the academy, what they had,
Mm-hmm.
they had a flashlight, a billy, a pair of handcuffs, a .38 special, and they were trained mostly to drive and shoot.
Yeah.
Now officers, they have all of those things, plus a taser, a tactical knife. They're wearing a body cam. They have double handcuffs. They have a semi-automatic handgun with multiple magazines.
Mm-hmm.
They have a rifle in their trunk, a shotgun, report forms, first aid kits, and they're expected to know how and when to use each thing. And the media unreasonably expects them to make zero mistakes. But the problem is police officers are human, just like the rest of us. And hindsight is always 20/20. It's so easy to Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
But the amount of education and re-education and continuing education that officers go through on a daily basis is staggering. I mean, it's more than most of us will ever do throughout our entire careers. And when there's a new development in technology or something on the news, I mean, officers are expected to know it and know it before their next shift. You know,
Right.
you think about officers back in the day, they didn't have to know about crime scene preservation or chain of custody. They didn't have to know about Miranda warnings because Miranda didn't exist yet. They didn't have to know the ins and outs of search and seizure law because case law hadn't been made.
Mhm.
And it is it's a lot, you know, it's a lot to expect officers to know, and they are going to make mistakes.
Right. Of course. But if they do make mistakes that go against the law, you will of course uphold the law as you need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No matter who you are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask a question. Right now, the news is all over places like Austin, Seattle, Chicago, Minneapolis. I feel like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, a weak DA in those cities is cause for the group, the society, to get a little unruly because they feel like they can get away with a lot right now, right? I mean, they're playing these DAs or any of the political figures in those areas are playing to the media's desire. They want to look good for the media by making decisions that aren't necessarily good for the people. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, am I right to assume that, or is that just crazy?
No, I think you're absolutely right. You know, we know that whether you're a criminal or a child, you know, you're going to get away with as much as somebody lets you get away with.
Right.
You know, we're going to push the limits. And I think that in these towns like Seattle and some of these other places where we're seeing unrest, it's because there are no consequences. And that's where Harris County's at. I mean, we're next. We are going to be the next Chicago if we don't do something about the crime here right now. And the DA is the first step into making sure that the public is safe. You know, holding criminals accountable, being a voice for crime victims, supporting the efforts of good law enforcement, but letting people know that there are consequences in Harris County. You know, May 16th, there was Rosalie Cook. She's 80 years old, 5 feet tall, never hurt anybody. She's coming out of Walgreens at 10 a.m., broad daylight. She leaves Walgreens and she's stabbed to death by a total stranger. Now, the man that did that, his name is Randy Lewis. And before he met Rosalie on that day, he'd already been arrested 67 times.
Oh, wow.
67 times he'd been arrested.
That's
And
crazy.
before he met Rosalie, the last charge he'd been arrested for was assaulting a police officer. You know, the DA's office in that case, they looked at his criminal history, the 67 times being arrested. They looked at his charge, so they knew he was violent. Basically, they knew he would do this again, and they agreed to release him. He didn't pay $1 in bail, and he was released back on the streets. You know, and then not 2 weeks later, Rosalie Cook and her family were the victims of that. I mean, does that make any sense? 67 times? I mean, I believe in second chances, but repeat violent offenders in Harris County are getting 15, 16, 67th chances, and it's not fair. You know, it's not fair to the rest of us that want to live in this county. And at some point we do. We need to start protecting law abiders and start punishing lawbreakers. We can either be rule of the mob or rule of law. But I love Harris County, and I have 2 young boys, and I want them to grow up in a safe place, which is why I decided to run for this. I never wanted to be a politician. I never wanted to do anything like this, but I love Harris County, and I do want my boys to grow up in a safe place, and we're headed in a bad direction.
And it seems like the biggest thing you're wanting to put the most emphasis on is that the repeat violent offenders are what you are running for office specifically because you feel like that's the biggest change that needs to be made, because there's a I forgot that word. there's an underlying thought by criminals that they can keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And as we talked in the very beginning, because they have that in the back of their mind, they're going to continue to do that unchecked. And you want to make sure that they're checked.
Absolutely. I think sometimes, people say, well, what about marijuana? Marijuana's still illegal. And, I think people hear me sometimes, they hear tough on crime. But I know that the DA's office has limited resources, and our problems in Harris County are not these low-level drug offenses.
Yeah.
Our biggest problems are gangs and the cartels and repeat violent offenders. Harris County is like a flooded house. And when your house floods, you don't go in and like start touching up the paint. You go in and you rip out the sheetrock and you remediate and you take care of the big stuff first. And Harris County has big problems that need major attention.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that a lot of people got upset about California too, that people are locked away for a long time because of soft drug use. So in your view, yeah, technically it is illegal in the Houston area, but that's something that's like not even on your radar. It's violent crimes, need to get gangs off the streets and make Harris a safer place.
And crimes against children too.
Yeah, crimes against children. As well.
Absolutely.
Going back to what you were saying about Randy Lewis, arrested 67 times. Why would the DA not look at the history and say, you know what, that's it, lock him up, don't let him out? I mean, is there some sort of reason why she wouldn't do that? I mean, like, is that solely just to make herself look good? Is that to keep the numbers down, to show Harris County does have a low, or make it seem like it has low violent crime? I mean, is that intentionally happening?
I think that it is a priority to keep the jail numbers low, especially during a time like COVID. And so I don't know if that contributed to that release. But someone with a criminal history like that, it makes me think that they didn't even look at the criminal history or the evidence in front of them. It's like just release.
Not doing their job.
Right, not doing their job. Because, I'm not a detective, but 67 times, that's a clue that this guy can't follow the rules.
Yeah.
You said COVID being, let's let him out because of COVID. I've heard excuses on, why we need to let criminals out for this reason or that reason. I don't really know of a good reason that there is to let a criminal out that's that violent. 67 arrests. I thought after like 10 that was it or something like that. There was a magic number in place.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, that just seems like a whole lot. How many people do you think are out there that fall under that description, that they've got a ton of arrests, they're not being held for whatever reason? Am I naive to think that that doesn't happen very often, or does it happen more often than we think?
Well, we know that in the last 2 years, there have been 61 people murdered in Harris County by defendants that have been released on multiple felony bonds or PR bonds, meaning, say you're arrested for murder, you get a bond and you're out on murder, and then you murder somebody else, right? 61 of those incidents where out on multiple felony bonds, should have had bonds revoked, but were given another bond, and then out on the street. That's 61 people that should have been alive today in the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
61 and counting if Mary Nan doesn't take DA's office.
Yeah. Another question I wanted to kind of a side question. Obviously not all these situations are, 67 offenses. It might be that they do it another time or 3 times or what have you, which is still unacceptable. And I'm not sure if you can touch on this too much, but is there a possibility too that in some of these cases as well, we can better change the programs on exit, that maybe these individuals were locked up and then they didn't have the rehabilitation necessary and then they turned just back to what they know?
I think that people are worthy of being rehabilitated, but I think there is a certain time when we have seen chance after chance, 67 times, where there's no rehabilitation that is going to make this person comply with the rules of society. And at that point, we just need to protect the public. Right.
Of course. Yeah. No, 100% there. I just meant in the kind of the lower numbers that maybe we could do something there as well. Just kind of, but anyways.
But I think, I was talking to a girl the other day, and she said that she went to prison. She went for 5 years, and she said that prison was the best thing that ever happened to her because she got a college degree. She learned skills. She was rehabilitated in prison. Now, we don't hear about that very often, but you also have to have people that want to be rehabilitated and take
Right.
advantage of. You could go to prison and sit there for 5 years, or you could get your college degree. But you have to want to do that for yourself,
Yeah.
and you can't expect the government to do everything for you. So I think it's more about letting people know what resources are available and then encouraging them to better themselves. So when they do get out, they can get a job and they can take care of their families. Um, you know.
Gotcha. And it's really the individuals who are just never going to change that you're really focusing on, because if they continually get chances, every chance that they get is going to be one they're going to take either a life or property.
The DA giving them a chance gives them that opportunity to do that, and
And
that's
it creates
that's
another victim.
that's scary. I mean, as a business owner, you know, we want to run our business. We want to have a safe place to run our business, and we want our customers to feel safe coming into that business. I know you said that you talk to a lot of business owners. You know a business owner that most of his shops. Tell me that what you were
Oh,
saying
yeah.
about that.
So I talked to a business owner the other day. He said that he owns stores in 11 states across the nation. Only 10% of his stores are in Harris County. So the other 90% are spread out throughout the US. He said that he's had more aggravated robberies in his Harris County stores in the last 2 years than all other locations combined.
Yeah, that's insane.
That is shocking.
That is insane.
And then to talk to him about how much money he's had to spend on security, putting up bars, repairing windows and doors, security systems, things like that. That's money that could have gone to employee raises or improvements to the store instead of just having to fix glass fronts over and over again. And we're going to discourage people from doing business in Harris County if we can't protect them.
Yeah, there's a certain point where you just get fed up and you just decide this isn't the place for me.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you have a small business, I mean, who can afford to recover that many times? I mean, if you don't have a nationwide business and support coming in from other states, I mean, you're out of business real quick.
Yeah, I think where that money that they spent on security and protecting themselves could have been spent on giving raises to the employees.
Right.
Could have been bringing costs down or bringing retail prices down. But the more expenses a business has, they're going to pass that on to the customers.
Right.
And so eventually, it topples. Right. You can't raise the price too much. You don't want to be in that area. You'd rather just spend that money in a different market altogether, which I'm sure business owners listening to this, there are some out there that said, that happened to me.
Well, I went to a business the other day and I tried to walk in through the door and the door was locked. And I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe they're closed. And so I started to walk away and the business owner came in, unlocked it and said, hey, what do you need? I said, oh, I'm sorry, the door was locked. He said, yeah, we've been locking the door because we have been robbed so many times in the last year. And so we would just keep it locked to prevent someone from walking through the door and ambushing us.
Jeez.
How would you like to go to work every day thinking that that's a possibility?
That wouldn't be fun. That's
No,
for sure.
I would not want to go to work at all.
No, that'd definitely take the wind out of your sails.
Absolutely.
So, Bill, when Mary gets into office, am I going to get a Texas Card House closer to me?
That's a great question. I would love to see Texas Card House down here in the Galleria area because that's where our old Post Oak Poker Club used to be. But I don't think that's in the cards for us to put a Texas Card House down here. There's already so many clubs and they're all doing great. It's a saturated area.
It's very saturated.
But Mary Nan got the chance to review our model. She got to tour the Mint Poker Club down in South Harris County. What did you think?
I thought it was great. It looked like a great facility, and you and Michael are great guys, so I loved the chance to get to meet y'all. And, we all deserve to operate our businesses safely without the fear of someone coming in and making arrests or raiding our businesses. Right. And so, again, that's going to discourage business owners from operating in Harris County if they think that I'm operating a legal, lawful business, but you're always worried about something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the last thing I thought we had to worry about was actually being extorted by someone who works under the DA. And what that person was doing there is still a mystery to most of us.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I've heard his name come up in other fundraising campaigns for OG, the Arkema case that you had told me about.
Right. So there's an Arkema case pending right now. It was a chemical explosion that happened right after Hurricane Harvey. And Kim Og indicted several of the top executives for Arkema. Now, 2 years ago when this case was indicted, word on the courthouse, around the courthouse was, these charges were unsustainable. Kim Og is prosecuting these cases because, she thinks that's what people want, prosecution of these environmental crimes. And a lot of people were hurt during that Arkema explosion. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was criminal. It's unfortunate that happened. We do have an EPA that's separate from the DA's office, an Environmental Protection Agency that handles crimes like that. But Kim Og went and indicted these cases. Now, the same day that the Arkema cases were filed, a fundraiser was held for Kim Og by Amir, who is, one of the players in this poker, and another attorney who actually has a lawsuit pending against Arkema. So doesn't that seem a little strange that the day those cases are indicted, a fundraiser that night for an attorney who has a claim against Arkema pending?
Yeah.
I mean, the timing of that is pretty suspicious. Probably because she wanted to indict the case, go to the party that night, everybody pat her on the back, donate a bunch of money to her. And again, we see politics being used to further the goals of the politician and not further the goals of Harris County and justice and keeping people safe.
Yeah. Wow.
And that case is actually in trial now. It's gone to trial. And halfway during trial, there was a motion presented by the defense, a motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct. And half of the charges were dismissed mid-trial.
Oh, wow. That's pretty insane.
But that doesn't make the news, right?
Right.
That stuff's not glamorous. It doesn't make the news. And it's
Oh, yeah.
that's what people really need to hear is that the start, the middle, and the end, because the start is very flashy, very good for Kim Og. The middle start to fall apart. In the end, it's like, why did you waste our time and money?
Yeah.
Was it for your own political gain or was it for what the people really need?
And the day the Arkema cases were dismissed, Kim Og goes ahead and indicts a Baytown officer, kind of like, don't look over here, but look over here. Look, I'm holding another police officer accountable. That shooting that the officer was indicted for, it happened over a year ago. So first of all, if that case was justified or if it needed to be indicted, why did it take a year to get through grand jury? That doesn't make any sense. It looks like something that she was holding in her back pocket for when something blew up on something else, then she could run in and have something to indict and then do a press release over here.
Yeah, that timing does seem super weird.
It does.
It does seem super weird.
Well, the same thing happened last year. There was a no-knock warrant served where 2 people were killed and the dog, and that happened right before the raids. And when that was the hot topic, all of a sudden, we're going to bust these poker rooms. Don't look over there anymore. That's not important. What we're doing over here is now very, very important.
Oh, wow.
It's
so she didn't go after a no-knock warrant situation that was messed up and instead went after your poker
well,
room?
the media was over here on the no-knock warrant, and now the media is
you.
over here on poker clubs being bad.
Oh, got you.
Which, luckily that turned around very quickly, but it's still, nobody hears the middle and the end of the story. They see the headlines, they read the headlines, poker bad, Kim Og good. And then, you get explained, someone at Kim Og's office was extorting these guys to the tune of $250,000 plus. Where was that money going? Was it going into Kim Og's pocket? Who knows? That's what the pending FBI investigation will hopefully uncover for us, because I don't even know the answer to that. I'd love to. We'll see.
Hopefully you'll find out. Yeah, and it always seemed really weird to me just in general in poker, while poker was illegal in the Houston area, how much resource was put towards that. And then I was like, okay, well, whatever, because I never thought they were never seemed like violent areas. Like there was never any other crimes really connected to them. It was just, in my view, it was kind of always a lobbying thing from Oklahoma and Louisiana.
Which it was, yeah.
But then I was like, okay, cool. So it's legal now. It's nice, clean rooms, like super security, like everything looks great, paying taxes, right? Everything should be good now, and you could probably just take those resources, put them somewhere else, and then it didn't happen that way.
No, it didn't happen that way.
So
yes, but You know, the DA's office, a lot of power, right?
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility, and making sure that the money's spent on the right crimes. I much rather saw that money that they spent on trying to find us, the poker rooms, doing something wrong, on crimes against children, or the guy who was arrested 67 times. Spend more money looking at those important things. Stop looking at things that are going to further your career, things that are for political gain. And, you know, the extortion thing, don't even get me started on that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. So no matter what, across the board, it seems like the main thing is you want us to be, Harris County DA's office, to be looking more and more at the violent repeat crimes. Everything else that happens obviously is important, but that's something that we really need to clean up, because that's going to make our streets safe.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say that's I think that's the big takeaway here for everybody, is that if they're looking for a safe place to live, work, and play, Harris County is the place that should be. But it's not there right now, but it can be with a vote for Mary Nan Huffman for sure.
Yeah.
And we can just do justice.
Yeah.
We can just do justice. There's plenty of guilty people. We don't need to find people guilty that aren't guilty. You know, I don't need to put people in prison that didn't commit crimes. Let's just do what's right and do it every single time.
Yeah. And I think red, blue, yellow, technically libertarian, right? Anyone on any side, I think this is a clear decision. It's unfortunate that sometimes people like to vote one way or the other, regardless of taking a look at what is actually important. But if you live in Harris County and you want to feel safer, I mean, especially as a business owner,
Absolutely.
Mary's the one.
Yeah.
Now, early voting starts October 3rd, and election day is,
13th.
October 13th, sorry. Early voting starts October 13th. Election day is November 3rd. You can go to harriscountyvotes.org to find polling locations close to you and find out
If you're registered to vote.
if you're registered to vote. Get registered. If you're not, this will be the first election where there's no straight party ticket voting. So you have to go and check every name on the ballot. We have one of the longest ballots in the country, and we want to make sure that people don't get ballot fatigue.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
how to get lucky this year, since 2020 is a crazy year. You start at the back of the ballot and go from the bottom to the top. Don't go to the top to the bottom. Go from the bottom to the top. That way you don't get ballot fatigue, because you're saving, you know, the president's race for last. But that will change your luck, because this is a topsy-turvy year. Would you agree?
Yes, I'm a big gambler, so yes, I always agree in any superstition.
That is my superstition this year. I'm doing everything backwards.
Everything backwards.
Yes, so find my name on the ballot, Mary Nan Huffman. If you want to find out more information about me, you can go to www.marynan, it's real Texas, it's real country, so marynanhuffman.com. Follow me on social media, facebook.com/Mary Nan Huffman, Twitter and Instagram @Mary Nan Huffman.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Mary, and thank you as well, Bill, coming back on.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
for making this happen. I'm always excited about local change. So, and if you have any questions for either of them, if you're looking at YouTube, just go to YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, put it down in the comments. I'm sure either one of them would be happy to reply to that comment. And of course, this is Texas Tea. I'm Roger D, and thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.